Guten Tag, everyone. This is Stephen Wolf here on the Stephen Wolf Gaming channel. And oh boy, is Nintendo really going to piss a lot of people off. Today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the whole, of Nintendo taking down, over 400, Switch Emulator repositories on Github. Okay, so recently I just saw a video on YouTube, by a user by the name of Cybeam. The video was titled "Nintendo just took down 401 more Switch Emulator repositories." Yeah, on GitHub. Yeah, which most of them were repositories of the Switch Emulator Suyu. Now, Suyu is the successor to the Switch Emulator Yuzu. Now, as somebody who does emulate, video games, I mean, yeah, of course, because I didn't start emulating Switch games until May 2024. That's what I was playing through Suyu. I was playing mainly through the Android version of Suyu. I did at one point have Egg and S, but just didn't know how to get Switch games going until 2020. That was until May 2024. That's when I started emulating Switch games. Yeah, I did used to use Suyu, but then ever since I got my Steam Deck in August 2024, I switched over to Ryujinx. I said it's kind of bad that Nintendo. I mean, because and this is why I've said, that's why this type of thing is why I would never buy Nintendo games buy Nintendo consoles or Nintendo games ever again, and which I have stayed true to that ever since May of 2019. Yeah, of course, in May 2019, that was the last time I ever bought a Nintendo game, and that was the 3DS remake of Bowser's Inside Story, which I said in one of my videos a while back. But yeah, like I said, the respect I once had for Nintendo have long since faded. Yeah, because that's why most a lot of times I just prefer to emulate video games, anyways. I mean, now if you've been a viewer of me since 2022, I've been emulating video games since mid September of 2022. Because that was when I started, emulating video games. I mean, I've been in the video game. Now, I have been to video game emulation for a long time. Since I was first introduced to YouTube in 2012. Back when I used to watch a lot of, Super Mario 64, speed runs. That's when I came across, Super Mario 74, which is, a ROM hack for Super Mario 64 made by Lord. That's what got me turned on to, video game emulation. I mean, of course, you can play that on either on an actual Nintendo 64, or you can play it through an emulator. But yeah, I mean, the first time I ever tried out an emulator, that was back in what? That was like in late spring of 2016. I was trying out a DS emulator, which had New Super Mario Bros. Already in the thing. But yeah. And I was playing it on my Samsung Galaxy Tab A. Yeah, and though it kind of lagged a bit, was lagging a lot because DS emulation isn't the best on 16 and 32-bit devices. That's why you had to have a 64-bit device or higher to get it like a stable 60 FPS. But yeah. But it just goes to show you how Nintendo is nowadays, man. But yeah, like I said, I heard about, them removing, about 400 repositories of Switch emulators. Yeah, which is never on GitHub. I mean, which is just not okay. Because, to be fair, Nintendo just has no legal standing point in that because like I said, emulators are legal. Yeah, of course, because even when watching this, I kind of saw some comments that I thought were. I did find some interesting comments though under that video. Because I'll read some for you if I can. And here's one that I commented on. Because I even have one that I commented on. Yeah, from the guy's video. Yeah, the guy Filler Bunny Ninja Shark 271 says GitHub should be sued for illegally removing these repositories. Nintendo has no legal standing to remove them since emulators are legal. Which yes, emulators are legal. Because yes, video game emulation is 100% legal. I mean, even though there's going to be probably some Nintendo retards who are going to probably try to argue me on that in the comments. I can already see that coming. and which I replied to this guy comment. I said, I agree. And plus, isn't Nintendo going to be discontinuing the Switch 1 in February 2027? Yeah, which they did announce that they were going to be discontinuing the Switch 1. Anyways, continuing on, I said, so what does Nintendo think that they're going to achieve by doing that? By trying to take down the repositories of the Switch 1? Absolutely nothing. Because it would be, I say, completely and utterly pointless. Since, as I had said earlier, Nintendo announced that they were going to be discontinuing the Switch 1. Announced that they were going to discontinue the Switch 1 starting in February 2027. They already got humiliated in the Power World lawsuit and wasted $40 million on patents and lost. No matter how many Switch 1 emulators they try to take down, more will eventually take their place, which they always will. So, Switch 2 sales in the West are already declining, which, yes, they are. Not many people are buying a Switch 2. Because how ridiculous the price is up to the 10 drones. And the way the hackers have been making breakthroughs on the Switch 2, there's a chance there might be a Switch 2 emulator up and running sometime next year. Which the chances are it might be. I said Nintendo can't stop it. Of course, I even said and predicted it myself that video game emulation was going to become the future of gaming. Which it is going to become the future of gaming. I mean, I'm not wrong. I mean, emulation is going to become the future of gaming. As the way things are going now, yes, video game emulation is going to become the future of gaming. Yeah, since Sony said they're going to be discontinuing physical media in 2028. Yep. That's why the PS5 emulation is already in early development as of right now. And that's why I said physical media is starting to die out. Because like I said, if we didn't have, places like Internet Archive or Wayback Machine, I'm pretty sure a lot of things would have became lost media. I mean, because like I said, because I even said it in one of my other videos. I'm all for video game preservation. But I don't trust Nintendo when it comes to that. I don't trust Nintendo when it comes to video game preservation. And like I said, yeah, the only reason they're just trying to take down stuff like this, but basically in their so-called fight against piracy, I mean, video game emulation is legal, which they have no legal standing on that because, like that person said in that comment, emulators are legal, are 100% legal. So as long as you're not, distributing, ROMs that you don't leave alone, like I said before. I was looking at another comment. If I can find it. Do, 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 do. There's another comment. This person said, good for them. They're within the right to protect the games they created. I mean, and then the person replied, says their games, emulators are not their games. Unless emulators have stolen their code, similar to how which Yuzu did, because Yuzu was, kind of profiting, Yeah, because Yuzu was kind of profiting off that. But it was unnecessary for Nintendo to try to take down, Ryu Jinx or Suyu, because Suyu and Ryu Jinx weren't profiting off of, that type of stuff. Only Yuzu was. It says, unless emulators have stolen their code, similar to how Yuzu provided some of Nintendo's code, Nintendo cannot legally take down emulators, which they cannot. There's established precedent that protects emulators dating back to the NES era. Yeah, that's true. You are legally allowed to reverse engineer software and hardware and re-implement it, so long as you're not using the original's code. This can be more complicated if there's patents involved, since patents legally prevent people from copying inventions and the trade-off of exposing how exactly the patented thing works. But I don't think the emulators are touching anything that would be patent, since most of the patents surrounding the Switch involves the actual physical device itself, and not the software inside it or any notable chipsets. Right. And I agree with that person's comment, because, yeah. I mean, you are legally allowed to reverse engineer software. I mean, like I said, if I want to, if I want to mod, if I want to mod a Switch to basically make mods for, games like that, I'm in my legal right to do so. Because why not? I mean, a lot of people make, because, a lot of people do make fan games, I mean, of course, Nintendo have been trying to take down a lot of, Pokemon fan games. Because the reason why a lot of people making Pokemon fan games, because Nintendo was failing to innovate, because Nintendo a lot of times fails to innovate. That's why people make fan games, make fan projects. I mean, at least Sega hire some of the people that made fan projects of Sonic games. I mean, heck, they could have took a page. Heck, Nintendo could have took a page out of Sega's book. But nope, they don't want to do that because Nintendo is fucking greedy. Because a lot of what Nintendo is doing is just going to be corporate suicide at this point. I saw another comment that was funny by MK78DX William. It's funny. He said why would Nintendo take down a Wii U emulator? Nintendo doesn't even care about that console anymore, and yet they take down Cemu. I mean, they didn't, because Cemu was still up. I mean, because I've been doing Wii U emulation since August 2024 as well. Is that true? I guess Nintendo wants to take down newer modern games and want no one to emulate them. Of course, he said, yeah, what? And I think the only reason why Citra was taken down was because they were the same people who made Yuzu. I mean, I would say it's kind of unnecessary. It was kind of unnecessary for them to take down Citra, because the 3DS had been discontinued since September 2020. I mean, so yeah, them taking down Citra was very pointless, because, I used Citra, mostly through the Limeroid app. That's how mostly I was playing 3DS games back in 2023. Because I used the Limeroid app, which had Citra built in, because that's how I mostly was emulating 3DS games. Before I started playing, before I started using Lime 3DS. I didn't start using Lime 3DS until August 2024. And then later on, sometime last year, I switched to Ozahar. Ever since Lime 3DS stopped working. Now Lime 3DS is basically, it's a fork of Citra. I mean, of course, even Ozahar is kind of a fork of Citra. So basically, I had to copy and all my settings and configs and overwrite all from Line 3DS and overwrite my Ozahar ones with the Line 3DS ones. Yeah, I got all my save data and all that good stuff too. But yeah, because like I said, I've been emulating video games since late September 2022. Of course, back then I was mostly emulating NES, SNES, and N64 games. Then I started emulating Game Boy Advance and of course Nintendo DS games around late November, early December 22. Yeah, when I got my Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra, which is the device I'm using to record this video right now. And of course, I started emulating, PSP games. Sometime since 2023, I was emulating PSP, Wii, GameCube, 3DS, and the PlayStation 1. That was throughout 2023. I was also emulating like 3DS, the Wii, the GameCube, the PS1, the PSP, and the PS2. On my on the Tab S8 Ultra. Then I started doing Switch emulation in May of 2024 through Suyu. Yeah, of course I am a member on their Telegram channel. Cause that's how I found out about the the ROM file leak for Mario & Luigi Brothership back in October 2024. Yeah, about the ROM file leak for for Mario & Luigi Brothership. This was back in sometime around late October 2024. Because I heard it through the Suyu team themselves. Even confirmed it. But yeah, like I said, Nintendo is just committing corporate suicide at this point. Because like I said, it would just be completely and utterly pointless for Nintendo to remove Switch Emulator repositories from GitHub to want to DMCA that type of stuff because Nintendo is going to be discontinuing the Switch 1 in February 2027, which is basically almost 5 months from now, since we're nearing the end of August, so it's almost like 5 months from now. That's when the Switch 1 will be discontinued. But yeah, it was kind of funny, that one comment. He said, "Why would they take down a Wii U emulator?" I mean, true. They don't care about the Wii U. I mean, the Wii U is like the worst selling console. I mean, it's a good console, but just bad execution on the marketing. And plus, the Wii U, the Wii U had been discontinued since November 2016 in North America. It didn't get fully discontinued until near the end of January 2017 in Japan. I was going by region on that one. Yeah, of course, that's when the Wii U was discontinued. It was discontinued on the 10th of November 2016 in North America. It didn't get fully discontinued until, like I said, near the end of January 2017. Well, in Japan. But yeah, I said, boy, and I see this what Nintendo's doing on this, when it's just gonna want people to pirate even more. I mean, that's why, you know, piracy is gonna become popular. And I really hate to say this, but I think piracy is gonna be the best way. It's the best way to own, you know, stuff. Piracy. I know some people are gonna try to argue with me on that, but whatever. I mean, as the saying goes, if buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing. Oh boy, that saying will live on to the end of time. But yeah. But yeah, I just thought I'd get my thoughts on that. I did kind of get a little, off topic there. But yeah. But yeah, like I said, the way Nintendo's, you know, moving, because like I said, Nintendo already got humiliated from the Power World lawsuit. I mean, I've lost a lot of respect from Nintendo ever since the Power World, them going at Power World, and of course the you know, the fan game, and of course the emulation community. Yeah, that made me not want to support Nintendo ever again. And that's why I to this day will never support Nintendo ever again. I mean, I'll still emulate video games, which, I mean, of course, video game emulation has kind of been my thing. I mean, of course, I am going to emulate the Switch too. But yeah. Anyways, that was all I wanted to, you know, give my thoughts on that. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy your rest of your day on that. Enjoy the rest of your evening, wherever you are in the world, you know, and all that good stuff. Anyways, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, Stephen Wolf Gaming Nights.